Hello, all of you beautiful, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Get Woo Woo. Woo! I love it. I love starting that our podcast episodes like that. It's like you never know what you're going to get when you listen to and you plug us in your ears. Sometimes we talk about belief systems, sometimes we talk about conditioning, other times we're talking about sex and magic and patriarchy. And it's just, yeah, it's just a beautiful, beautiful blend.
Mm.
Today, we're going to start talking into the layers of healing, which I feel is such a profound topic. And depending on where you're at in your healing journey or where you're at in your journey at all, will really depend on how this lands for you. So, we really want to break it down by talking about our own layers of healing and how that's been for us, but also a little bit deeper as well. Because to really understand and to get a connection with God or the divine or source, to be able to live in your soul's alignment, you really need to be able to dig a little bit deeper in the levels of healing, don't you think, Sis?
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
it's more than just the belief systems that we've been speaking into in previous episodes.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right, which is a beautiful starting point. So I've got a few things that I've jotted down here, and I'm going to speak into them, and we can really just piece out our own journeys along the way. But the way that I really would love to start this is just by going on a little bit of a story, and speaking into how this has kind of shown up in my own healing, in my own journey. So, as I've spoken about in our previous podcast about how when I was a little girl, I was like really. I was like really connected to to the divine. Like I used to jump into the cosmos, like lucid dream right before I would go to sleep, and just really, really gifted. So I feel like the ability to tap into what I call the 10th layer of healing, which is like jumping into past life healing, I really had to go through all of the layers before. And to be able to do that, had to start at the basics. I've jotted them down in about 10 points, and I'm just going to say what they are, and then we'll speak into them one by one and then kind of see how they align with you as well, sis. So, number one, I've got connecting to your trauma and understanding your conditioning, understanding your belief systems, understanding your subconscious mind and how the patterns and habits kind of show up for you. And that's really like the surface level um, understanding of healing. And then I've got for number two is going deep into trauma. So going deep into our own specific, like me, my person, as an individual trauma, and transmuting that pain. So whether that looks like obviously shadow work, but whether that looks like just sitting with the traumas, or whether that looks like actually transmuting it through sexual energy, or transmuting it into out energetically from the body. And number three, I've got into is understanding and connecting to the mind and how the brain, the mind, or the psyche set actually works. Like, and this is your real kind of like neuroscience understanding, and how the brain works, how to reprogram the brain to ingrain new patterns and new habits. Which you can do in so many different ways. And then I've got number four. Point number four is a connection to the body. So connecting now, really digging deeper into those layers of healing, like bringing yourself into your body. And then number five, I've got connecting to your energy and connecting to energy in general. because everything is made of energy and we all have an energy field around us. Even something as simple as hugging a person, and giving love to a person that's having a really challenging time, you're actually taking on that energy. And if you don't know how to block that, then you can then bring that into your energy field. Number six, I have is spirituality. So, really connecting deep, on a really deep level to, like, in a spiritual way. And I'm not talking about wellness, I'm talking like actual spiritual sense. So connecting to your soul, connecting to your soul's path, your spirit, connecting to the spirits around you. Like, as for example, an understanding that, everything is spirits in the shamanic teachings and shamanic practices. So, water, water, for example, the ocean have the ocean spirits, the oceanic people. The mountains have the mountain spirits, the rock spirits, the beautiful indigenous of all around the world, which is where we all originated from, right? We're all indigenous at heart, and in spirit, and in consciousness. So, really understanding that is like a really deeper, level of healing. And then I have for number eight, we start to get into the collective trauma and the collective conditioning and the collective pattern. So, for example, in a previous episode, we've really spoken into, the patriarchy and how that's affected, women in terms of, the suppression and how that actually affects us. Number nine, I have as deep subconscious work. So deep subconscious work is the things that we can't actually access unless we're in a trance state or an altered state of consciousness. And the only way that we can access these points and this profound level of healing is through shamanic work, is through trance, deep, deep meditations, or through plant medicines. They will
Mm.
literally take you into a place where you just can't quite get to sometimes. And then number 10, the 10th layer of healing I have at the moment, is past lives.
Mm.
So for me, myself, I've been able to access, past life. It's not something that I've really spoken into a lot. I have a little bit of resistance speaking into this right now, but it's something that I've been able to access for quite some time. Going back in through, remembering past life, experiences and the different kind of people that I were, women that I remember, with three different past life experiences for me. So, to unpack that a little bit, because that's kind of like just like all of these 10 points that I literally have just created myself, to really understand what that kind of looked like, for me, even if we just kind of go through, just touch on these, a bit, is for me, it started to really understand that I was living a life that was just out of alignment. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was triggered by other women's happiness. I was triggered by men who seemed to be so loving, but, not something that I had received. And a really interesting topic here as well, just to dive into quickly, is I was even triggered, which I've just recently understood, triggered by my dog.
Mm.
And the love that my dog has for me, like the way that he just sits there and waits and just loves on me all the time. And, like, if you're someone that hasn't received a lot of love, that can be quite triggering because you're like, why are you looking at me? Like,
Mm.
"Oh, just leave me alone. Like, stop sitting at the back door." And these were things that were really prominent, and still, healing's a healing journey, still sometimes prominent within my life. So these were things that I wanted to understand, why I was being triggered by these things and where these traumas really came from. So, understanding that my belief systems and conditioning and the patterns that I had within my own life, and then starting to really going deep into these traumas, which I actually didn't do as like a point two. I did that quite later on. I understood the how the nervous system works, how we regulate the nervous system. I learned a lot of neuroscience by reading a lot of books and some programs that I was doing, mentorship, and really understanding, like even NLP. So, for anyone listening that doesn't know what NLP is neuro linguistic programming. So, it's pretty much the language of the brain, which is something that I studied probably about 4 years ago now, and I found really intriguing. Just by speaking into a language, you can really start to deveil deveil some of your belief systems, and that feeling of I just don't quite feel good enough. I don't know why I don't feel good enough. I'm surrounded by beautiful people. I have loving children. I make great money. I am this Miss Independent woman. I feel fucking vibrant. I have a bomb ass body that I've built, but I just don't feel good enough. Where is that coming from? And starting to piece back that pretty much everything comes from childhood, right? Everything comes from an unmet need. Yeah, and starting to really go deep into that kind of work. And then starting to for me, I started to learn about, I started doing Reiki and understanding the energy centers and how they work, as well as understanding how to work with my body and allowing the connection back to my body, because a lot of our misaligned soul's path is a disconnection to our body, right? So it's like
Mhm.
we're living this life in this robotic body and just doing all of the things that we've been taught to do: make the money, buy the house, buy the car, do the things, have the kids, XYZ, but not actually digging deeper into the layers of healing and going and really understanding, okay, but I'm doing all of these things now. I'm doing all the inner work, but I still don't feel aligned. Still don't quite feel happy. So really understanding that was yeah, something that I started to dig even deeper, to really piece apart where I can go even further. And look, this can be a position where some people tend to stop. They're like, I've learned all of the things about myself, and I'm changing my habits, and I'm quite happy, and this is where I'm going to stay. But for someone who has a very fluent, very deep remembrance, a very big spiritual connection to the other realms, other dimensions, and a deeper, more profound journey. That was like the very starting point for me. So I might head over to you, Mon, and allow and kind of speak into how that untailed and unfolded for you, and then we can go in a little bit deeper.
That was beautiful. Thank you. And I love
Yeah.
those steps that you have pieced together yourself. I feel that I flowed through such a similar journey.
Mm,
And when
mm,
I look at like the levels of healing and like my own journey of healing, my like first step was similar to you. It was like a point in my life where I didn't know why, but I just wasn't experiencing joy. I just
mm,
wasn't happy. And like, even if someone made a joke, a lot of the time I wouldn't laugh.
mm,
I would turn down social events. Like I didn't even want to experience joy. And later I started to discover that like I had a belief that I wasn't worthy of joy. But
mm,
yeah, my healing journey started because I was actually so sick of feeling the way I was feeling and living the way that I was living, and like seeking and attaining all these things that I thought would bring happiness, and then still never feeling happy or good enough or fulfilled. So like building the business, buying the house, having an incredible partner, getting animals, buying all the things to go in your house, like doing all of those things and being like, oh my gosh, I've ticked all the boxes. Why am I still feeling so empty and broken? And like, why do I still hate who I am? And it just got to a point where I was pretty much like, honestly, I was like, fuck this. This, like, this cannot be life. This can't be it. Like, I used to think that happy people, like people that were as happy as me, I was like, she's faking it. That is not possible. I didn't see that as something that was available to me because I had been in a state of suffering for so long.
So did I. Mm.
Yeah. And so similar to you, I think it's such a gentle step is I started with like the mindset work and started to look at like my belief systems and my shadows and my self-talk and like comparison and judgment and all these very head-based things. And in doing that, that's where I started to be like, oh wow, like I understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And I started to like logically understand it like in my head. And I started to know it all and see it all. But in knowing it all and seeing it all and speaking about it all, I wasn't moving through it. I was just
Mm.
gaining awareness of it and becoming more conscious and more present.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until like I started to move into the body that I was actually able to move through the traumas that I had. And I think it's so important that like we remember that as humans, we are an animal. We are a human animal and we have instincts. Just like you see like animals in the wild have instincts. Like we are the same and we have often forgotten that. And a lot of our inability to move through trauma is our inability to connect with our body.
That's such a powerful piece, and I just want to stop you there for a second, sis, and I just want to speak into that because in the shamanic practices, right, we have three worlds: the upper, the middle, and the lower world. And the lower world is the instinctual, primal, like fucking beastie, like I'm gonna fight for my life. Right? Yeah. It's like the tigress, the serpent that's attacking. It's that don't come near my babies, like that
Mhm.
primordial, instinctual life and that fight. However, this is also where the fear lives, the shame, the guilt, the like the lower, I guess, quote unquote vibrational emotions and feelings live. So therefore, when you start to do the inner work, a lot of people go, we don't want to go there because we don't need to feel that. However, that is to be able to connect to soul and the upper world, you must be in alignment of the lower world as well to bring it together for the
Yes.
middle world, which is the world that we live in now. Mm.
Yeah, and that's such a big piece because in society we often aren't taught that it is okay to move through emotions like that and to be with our fear or to feel our sadness or our anger or our rage or whatever is being suppressed. And so a lot of the time we're walking around with these blocks in our body and then they manifest into the way that we speak to ourselves, the way that we live our lives, the way that we are. And they're holding us back and limiting us in our potential, but we don't realize that it's due to energies stuck in our bodies. Like we think that we need to go and change a behavior and we're like, oh, I'll change my routine. I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. And that's all well and good. But there's still these blocks and this dis-ease in the body that is often not being, it's unknown a lot of the time and it's often not being moved through.
And it's not being moved through because it gets to a point where like, even for example, for me, there's been many times that I've gone, yeah, I'm going to connect to my rage, I'm going to connect to my primordial part of me, and then I do, and I connect to it, but I don't go to the depth that really needs to be shifted and moved. And if you think about trauma or things that you've suppressed and just pushed down for all of this time, and packed more stuff on top of it, like building blocks. You're slowly unpacking and taking the blocks off. And yeah, you're connecting to that. But connecting to that on a really deep level is where the magic is. Like on
Right.
Sunday, I did a level one shamanism beginners course, and we did it in person, and we like traveled to the lower world, and we connected to like our totem animal and our primordial state, where like the my teacher was literally pretty much like yelling at us like in this journey, this drumming journey, like connect, you fight for your fucking life, like. And us women were like, because at the beginning it was all like in our heads, we're like roar and making like these crazy sounds that, in the mind was like, what the fuck are you doing? But then by the end of it, wait, some of the girls were like on the ground and like, just banging, like getting right into it. And like this was like deep, deep spiritual like work. And it
Mhm,
was fucking powerful, sis.
mhm.
Like, whoa, like to go to that kind of depth is a like such a deeper, profound level of healing.
Yeah, and it's that animal piece that, like, and it's coming out of the head and into the body, which is such a deep level that there is no thought behind it. It is fully guided by, like, instinct and, like, body sensations and whatever wants to come through that.
Yeah.
I've done a practice around pleasure before that was guided, and it was about coming into your inner animal as you orgasmed. And, like, we spent maybe, like, half an hour before we actually started to pleasure ourselves, like, really embodying our inner animal. And by the time it got to a state of, like, where you're touching yourself and you're gonna climax, she was, like, guiding us, and she's like, "Let the sounds of your fucking animal come out. Like, be your animal, be your truth. You're not here to put on a show for anyone. You don't need to be like, 'Oh, oh, yeah.' Like, you don't need to do that." She's like, "Just, like," yeah, she's like, "Just come on, like, just say what you wanna say, like, fucking let it out." And I couldn't believe that as I was climaxing, I was, like, growling, screaming, like, rage was coming out. It wasn't this sexy scene that we have been taught an orgasm was. It was, like, pure animal. And it
Wow.
was so beautiful, and yeah, it really shocked me. I was, like, almost, like, shocked at what was coming through me.
Did you
Yeah.
connect specifically to an actual animal, or is it
No,
just yeah.
no, or just to our own bodies. But it
Mm,
just made me, like, really start to be like, "Whoa, what the fuck is in my body? Like, what is in my body?" And I started to realize that a lot of my healing, all of my healing is actually able to be transmuted through my body, not through my mind. I
mm.
spent years just doing mindset stuff, and it kind of led to, like, circulating the same patterns. Nothing really got moved. A lot of awareness was created, but it was just a lot of like, oh, I'm in that cycle again. Mm.
Yeah, that's such a powerful piece, sister. And I feel like I didn't know that. I didn't
Mm.
know that about you. That was incredible. That's definitely something that I would love to, yeah, I would love to connect to. I feel like there would be quite a bit of resistance coming up because it's like having that regular, normal, like sound. I guess it's what we've been conditioned to do, really. Like,
Yeah,
does that even feel good? Which is really interesting. Interesting to speak into. But what I'm feeling now is like it's like hitting those layers. Like even because I know that we've spoken off air about like deeper levels of healing, which that I feel is that's coming into the like hitting in the primordial like spiritual level of healing. Like because that deep sounds and that what the fuck is in my body, like that's from ancestors and ancestors ancestors and from past lives and from all the way back to when humanity very first began,
yeah.
right? Which is such a profound layer. If I was on a walk this morning and I was thinking into the layers of healing, and I was like, it's really like a cake. It's really like a cake. If you, and depending on what part of the cake you like, whether you like the icing at the top or whether you like the nice, moist cake at the very bottom will be where you start in your healing journey, and where you end up is perfect. perfect in this lifetime. But if you think about it like a cake, for example, like I like the bottom of the cake, so I would start at the top, probably throw the top away, which would be, kind of that mindset work and digging right and deep and really understanding, which is so important to understand all of these layers. But when you start to get into the energetics of your body, you start to really come into your body and you start to get into the energetics that's around us and that's inside of our bodies. It's it's a completely different level of healing. It's like getting into, the second layer of the cake, and then all of a sudden it starts to get really juicy or starts to get really sweet depending on where you're at. And it's not an easy road, like this is why a lot of people will do so much healing or not at all. They'll get to some point and they'll go, right, that's enough, which is perfect.
Mhm.
But where you and I and many of the listeners listening to this podcast are not here for that. They're here for so much more, and such a deeper, profound level of healing. And I know that as we continue to heal through these layers, the layers of the cake, right? Um, Things start to get a little bit weird. The mind is like, "What are you doing? Why are
Mhm.
you doing this?
Mhm.
This is weird. This is not normal," which is
Mhm.
just the ego, right? The person, the identity, the self to protecting us to go, this is not what we do here in this life. But ultimately, what you want to do in that instance is lean into that resistance and then do it 10 fucking fold and do it
Yeah.
really, really good, right? It's
Mhm.
like lean into that and do it even better, because then when you do that, you can then create a new pattern or a new neuro pathway, and then the ego then starts to dissolute a little bit and goes, oh, maybe we can do that. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Mm.
feel like the more that you do lean into those edges, the easier it is every time as well. Like, it becomes very normal for you to sit with things or move through things or do new things or put yourself in new spaces or whatever it is that you're doing on your healing journey. It becomes easier and you get better at holding yourself through it. And I think it's like such a beautiful piece that, like, yeah, the mindset work is so important and like understanding how the mind works. But it's so beautiful when you talk to people on a healing journey of how different everyone starts. Like, a lot of the people I know start with like breath work, or they start with like some sort of personal development event and then they're like, holy shit. And it's just knowing like there is no right way, but there are layers that are going to help you deepen your understanding and your healing within yourself and your connection to like your spirit and your soul and your purpose, and like be in alignment with that. And it's also like doing all of this, but equally being content with where you are right now. Like, I'm so content in my life, but equally, I desire more healing and more depth and more understanding of myself.
Mm. It's an interesting concept because I remember you speaking into and sharing something with me, and someone around you had said, "Yeah, but when are you like? When is enough? Like, do you need to keep looking for more things to heal?" Or, and it's like it's not that it's not that you're looking for more things to heal. It's just the consistent things continuously pop up, and then they come up, and you're like, "What do you do with that? Are you just going to continue these cycles and these patterns and habits, or the new ones that you've created, which are, were healthy a year
Mhm.
ago, but now no longer, right? As you continue to evolve and starting to deepen your connection with your body, and you start to deepen your connection with God, with source, with the divine, whatever you choose to align, it's all literally the same thing with self, right?
Mhm.
Um, Depending on how far you really want to go with that. But I know that it's like this um, it's like this never-ending cycle when you start this healing journey, and you get like, "Oh, yeah, I'm healed," and then all of a sudden, all this ancestral trauma will start to come through, and you're like, "Holy shit, I'm feeling fucking grandma's shit now, that's not even mine."
Actually, though. No, and just like we talked about the death and rebirth cycle, like you're like having this rebirth and you're like, oh my gosh, like everything's amazing. I love life. And then you like find a new piece and you're like, oh my gosh, what the fuck? And like you're like going through the cycle again and you're letting go and you're moving through that piece. And it's just like our emotions, they never last. Like in the cycle of healing, you're always like moving through pieces and discovering more depth about yourself. And because you evolve so much, because you are letting go and like rebirthing so much, you constantly are changing. And there's constantly new pieces coming up. And it's so misunderstood by people that are not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's really important that you learn to be okay with being misunderstood by people that are not doing it. They don't need to understand. And if they do judge you, that's just a reflection of their own perception, their own beliefs, and their own everything that's happened in their life. Like it's their own stuff. If someone judges you or someone makes a comment about you, it's nothing to do with you. And it's getting to a place where you deeply know that and you can hold yourself through that.
I was listening to an Aubrey Marcus podcast that I've been listening to for a couple of days. I love Aubrey. He's just
Mhm.
like next level juicy, just deep dive into all of the things. I love it. And something that he mentioned was about like the judgment and the trolling that happens on social media, and the perception of other people, the sacred point of view, I call it, of other people judging on, comparing on what you're doing with your healing or what you're doing in general, what you're posting. Most of the time, pretty much all of the time, it comes from a place of envy, and that place of envy is the people that are doing that don't feel worthy enough of feeling that happiness, or don't feel worthy enough of moving their body in a way that you move your body that looks so fucking elegant. And there's this piece deep inside, even if you can't connect to it, which is just that disconnection that you can't connect to, that you project all of the shame and the judgment based on another person. So that's a really beautiful piece for anyone
Mm.
listening, who feels that they don't want to
Yeah.
deepen their healing because the people around them don't quite understand. And the thing with envy is it's actually the hardest to transmute. And you actually can't transmute envy. So the Buddhists say you can't transmute envy through emotion. You must change envy into something else. So, for example, anger, rage, or whatever an emotion may be, feel that and then move through those emotions, because you can transmute all of, rage
Um,
and sadness, which is really interesting, right?
mm. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Mm,
That's so interesting.
mm.
Makes sense though.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And it can do like one of two things as well. When it comes to like trolling or people that are judging, whether that's you on your healing journey or your path or your next layer of healing as well. Oh my gosh, she's fucking working with spirits now. Watch out. I've heard two people have died with that, which is something that, I've heard people say, be careful with this and be careful with that. And it's like, okay, that's just, again, that's your fear that's coming up. And it's like, and that's okay. But a general problem here is, people will feel that envy and either want to bring you down or stop you from doing what you're doing for their own fear, or they will then find joy or happiness in your suffering, which is like
Mm.
the opposite end of the scale. So envy, and then I can't remember exactly what the term is, but it's like, it's like evil forces, really. It's
Yeah.
egregores. It's like an evil spirits that are, taking over, really. If we're
Mm.
looking at it from a spiritual perspective, which is, yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important piece to touch on is, like, knowing that often judgment of others will come when you're on your healing journey, and knowing how to move through that and knowing, like, why it's happening, and also at the same time knowing it's nothing to do with you. And there's this piece of, like, as you go along your healing journey, you start to realize that you are not separate from anything,
Mm.
and it makes it so much easier to hold judgment.
Mhm.
Like, you
Mhm.
just you realize that whatever another is doing to you, they're doing to themselves,
Mm.
and you start to invite in compassion.
Mm.
Not always.
And I feel like that's where the deeper level of like layers of healing comes into play. Like if you can get into those, if you can get into, the ancestral trauma and the ancestral conditioning and the real like collective trauma, because
Mhm.
now we're talking about collective trauma, or
Yeah.
collective conditioning. One person, if one person's hurt, because we are not separate, right? If one person's hurt, then you're hurt, you're feeling that as well. Something that I went through in my journey as well. I'm a very witchy kind of archetype. I have a very witchy archetype. Like I love people and I love people, right? And healing, but I
Mhm.
really, really, really love being on my own in my own little bubble. Love and light and just, go into the darkness, yes, but I love to be in my own little bubble. Never watch the news, don't this, and this. And a lot of that came from, and I don't watch the news and I won't watch the news. However, there's still a lot of fucking bullshit things that are happening on the other side of the world that I don't know anything about, but it's affecting me. It's
Yeah.
affecting me because they're my brothers and they're my sisters and they're, you know, there's wars going on and there's fires getting built and there's women getting raped. Like we feel that collective trauma. It's not happening to them, it's happening to us, like all of us. And
Yeah.
to really be able to feel that is to go into these deeper levels of healing and understand that we are not separate.
Yeah.
Mm,
I feel that.
mm, mm.
And it's through eliminating the separation that we're able to heal to deeper capacity.
Yeah, yeah. I know for me that there's no way that I would have been able to feel this level of or this depth of connection to others if I hadn't gone through the different layers of healing myself. Um, and learning what I learn now about in the shamanic space, but also what I've learned through plant medicines as well, what I've learned through journeys, what I've learned through meditation, connection to past lives.
Mhm.
The things that I've learned is that when one's hurting, we're all hurting, whether we choose to connect to that or not.
Mhm.
And something really special that we can do is really focus on our own healing to get to a point where we invite in the challenges and then we continue to heal those around us.
Mhm.
And then there's a percentage of the population that go on to be healers, which we're all healers, we're all shamans, right? We're all indigenous. But there's a percentage of the population like you and I, sis, that go into deeper into the journeys to be able to heal the people around us and bring others on that journey with us so they are not alone. They're not feeling the loneliness and the trauma and the pain all by themselves, but we
Yeah.
feel it together.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a beautiful piece, and, like, knowing that if, because I know on my healing journey when I started, saw my family and I saw how much suffering was in my family, and I was like, "How do I help them? How do I heal them? How do I get them to do this work?"
Mm.
And it came like, I had this realization that I never could, and all I could do was heal myself, but in healing myself, I was able to heal my family.
It's a really powerful roll on effect. It's a really, really powerful roll on effect.
Yeah, and I just noticed, like, it's not that they are on a healing journey, but the things that we can say and be for them as we heal allows them to heal
Mhm.
without them intentionally being on a journey of healing.
Mm.
And it also allows them to experience like a deeper love. Like I can love my family deeper now. I can hold them deeper now.
Mm.
And I can communicate to them differently. Like the other day I was crying and I rang my mom and I asked my mom to hold me. I said, Mom, can you hold me as I cry and I tell you why I'm crying? She's like, "Yeah, let all your tears out." And I was like, my inner child was like, "I love you," like in that moment. And then I just told her everything. And then at the end of the conversation, I was like, "Mom, thank you so much for holding me through that. That meant so much to me." And I could feel her love through the phone of being like, "I'm a good mom." I was like, "Yeah, you fucking are." Just like little micro moments like that. Where once I maybe would have rung her crying and sobbing and angry and played the victim and like all these things and like her nervous system would have been really dysregulated. Where I can ring her and just hold her in a different way as she holds me. And it's in those micro moments that, yeah, we really change.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you, sister.
Mm, thank you.
It just goes to show the level, like the layers of healing that you've done to be able to hold space in that
Mhm.
moment.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And when I look at like other ancestral pieces that have come up for me, like a huge piece was when you guided us, like me and a group of women in WWW through a shamanic journey. And my whole womb space was like on fire. Like just my womb space was on fire. And then I was like shaking through my hips. I was like trembling. And I was like having visuals of like all of this sexual trauma and like all these things that had occurred in my lifetime, but also to my parents, to my grandparents, to like many, many lifetimes through my lineage. I was feeling all of this trauma and energy in my womb space and it was moving through me and I could feel it coming up, like up through my throat and up through like my mouth and out. Like this energy was pulling through my body. And it was something I didn't even know my body was holding, but it just shows like going to that deeper level and being guided through a shamanic journey, you're able to move through deeper, deeper, like very hidden trauma that's in the body.
Yeah, going straight into a trance state, really, going into another world and
Yeah.
allowing yourself to feel the things through the ancestral line, which is really powerful.
Mm.
You're then able to transmute that from ancestors who weren't able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. Like sometimes I'll sit down at my altar and I'll like call in like my ancestors and I have both my grandparents with me like all the time. And it's just this piece of like, I know they're there because they need help. I know they're there because they need help. But I also know that like feel this presence of like they're so fucking proud. And so you like sit at your altar and you go on these journeys or like just in life. But there's this deeper level of like, this is not just me. And I'm so held in all that I'm doing. And this was all like pre-planned. I'm fucking here to do this. And you're guided by like all of those before you.
You know, we have something like, I can't remember the statistics. You can do the math if you like. I think
Oh
it's like
god.
2,600 or 2,400 just direct bloodline ancestors that we're holding within our body.
Wow.
Because if you think about it, right, we have our mum and our dad, and then
Yeah.
our mum's mums, mum and dad, and our mum's mums, mums, mum and dad, right? And all of these along the line, and then all of the little branches out that come in. And that's just over a matter of 10 generations.
Yeah.
Like we are in a direct, we know that that trauma is passed down the lineage, conditioning is passed down the belief systems are passed down the lineage from like from a collective level for up to 8 generations. Like
Yeah.
8 generations ago, we're holding that in our body. 8 generations ago, they were burning women, to the state for journaling.
Mhm.
previously to that.
Yeah.
There's so much there. So this time right now in this beautiful, beautiful life, right?
Fucking
Like,
love this life.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like it's
Yeah.
literally a time for healing and healing that collective. I was listening to Matthias Di Stefano ages ago,
Mm.
and he was saying this generation now and the ones before and the next one after us, anyone under the age of 7 is on a different journey. But us, we're literally here just to heal trauma, just to heal the trauma, to change it. That's
Mm.
literally the soul, like the collective consciousness um,
Wow.
journey. And it makes so
Yeah.
much sense.
It does. It's so beautiful too to witness it and see it changing. Like, just you can see from our parents' generation to our generation how much more conscious we are
Yeah.
and how much more like just in like every possible way we are changing. And yes, there's still suffering, but it gives so much hope for what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to share a little story um without going into too much detail because it's not really my story to share. But I was having a conversation with my son's girlfriend recently, and her parents have been quite, especially her mom, has been quite. She's got mm, a lot of things that she hasn't worked on, a lot of disconnection to her sexuality, a lot of disconnection, a lot of control issues, like most of us do at some point, right? But the way that I can witness the way that she's stepping out into the world today is such a profound. It's really profound because she's literally 17, and to see like where I was at 17, or where the generation previously, like her mom and her dad were at that age. It's just changed so much. A simple phrase is, you've got to respect my house. Doesn't make any sense. The house doesn't have any boundaries. The house doesn't have any respect. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's not about respecting the house. It's about respecting a boundary that you've created that is messy and unnecessary. Like to say, that it's not okay to have sex is to say that it's not okay to be a woman, or not okay to be a man, or anything like that. Like, but the way that the next generation, because that's a generation past us, is moving through this is so beautiful, and able to then heal for the next generation who won't be as much as carrying on that trauma. um
Mm.
yeah, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful piece.
It is. It really is. And it's like
Mm.
having so much compassion for those generations before us because a lot of them have experienced so much suffering and they haven't healed through it. So they're still suffering.
Yeah.
And it's really sad and it hurts my heart when I think about it.
Mm. Yeah, me too.
But I'm grateful that we had this opportunity in this lifetime to change that. Like we are impacting those people that are suffering
Mhm.
through healing ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm.
What a juicy potty, hey?
Yeah.
Woo!
We
Love
just went
it.
like here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, love it.
If you, I was gonna say, if you're watching on YouTube, look at my face in the sun right now.
Mon's face is literally glowing. Oh my gosh, looks
Mm,
like an angel.
I am.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, baby. Well, we trust that you have enjoyed today's episode. It's been quite beautiful, and yeah, quite in depth. And if you have your own layers of healing, we'd love to hear what they are. Yeah, and if you have anything that you want us to speak into, yeah, share, send us a message.
Mhm.
And yeah, please like this podcast, share it with your friends. Let us reach more listeners, more women, more men, and yeah, start to really, really shift the humanity consciousness, right?
Mm, beautiful. Thank you so much for listening. I
Love.
love you.
Bye.